All right, welcome everybody to another Infield Chat. Today's episode is sponsored by Valley Sports. If you're interested in their training gloves, getting discounts on those training gloves, make sure you check out the link in the description. I have joining me today Jordan Vina, Brandon Zink, and Connor Lang. So I'm so pumped for this, guys. This is an expanded crew. Tyler will join us next episode, but this is we got some new minds here, some fresh takes, and I'm really excited to get into some double plays here. So let's dive right in here. So for those of you guys who are looking to kind of try to siphon out who the best guys are at turning double plays, being efficient on these types of plays, there is a stat for that. It's RGDP. You'll be able to find that on Fangraphs. I think Fielding Bible is the one who John DeWan who's kind of introduced this. But it's a good way to track your guys, and it gives you a little bit of a value in terms of how it's ranked in DRS and stuff like that. So diving into some positioning here, because if you're not in the right position, it's really hard to be elite at this. So I've got here Baseball Savant, essentially clips of league averages in terms of shading and shifts. So I've got at the top for each position just a guy who I think is ideal, a guy who does this really well. So if we look at Jimenez here, so 147 feet, 12 degrees. We're looking at this as like a 90-degree angle as the field, 0 lines, dead middle. So he's positive 12. 147 feet back, straight up. That means no runners on. Over here, we've got runners on. He's cut his depth. Now, notice the angle stays the same. All right, now this is on left-handed hitters. As we move to right-handed hitters, same concept, right? We're pinched middle because we've got those shift limitations. We might be shifted harder had we not been limited by that, but that's what we're working with. And he's at 155 feet to start here. And again, the angle doesn't change. We just cut depth when it comes to a runner on first base. And it's interesting. This starts to hold true as you start to bounce around the infield. Now, third base is kind of a crapshoot right now with trying to figure out what you value as a defense. But middle infield, it's pretty standard. We're not shifting from our angle, right? That angle might change player to player, but you're not seeing a whole lot of movement from that angle when it comes to your double play depth. So they're still covering the same swath of land. It's just you're not covering that as effectively because you cut your depth. But again, we're looking to turn double plays here. So Lindor, 150, -17, playing pretty hard pull side. Now he's a little bit more extreme than most players. Most players are probably around 16. And then, again, when we cut the depth, it's about 3 feet for Lindor on this side. When we go to the left-handed batter, again, shift limitations, we're playing pretty hard middle. And a lot of times this is going to float even more towards the base, taking that -4 closer to a -3, -2. But straight up, he's at 153. He only takes a step in at 152. And again, I was talking to the guys earlier, but it seems like this is probably just because they're so pinched. You're not going to see the same kind of depth drop because they want to cover ground, more depth, more ground coverage, essentially. So if we can keep that ground coverage and still get to the bag on time, that's really what we're looking for. And now third, I was talking to, I think it was Connor earlier about like, I almost didn't want to put this in because third base bounces around so much. You can see how big the clouds are here. And again, Chapman's footages, there's not a whole lot of variation here with runners not on and runners on first base. So again, we're still covering the same swath of land. The goal is still the same. Like we're giving this up if you're Chapman. Now Chapman plays about here. So it's really kind of in the middle. A lot of teams will go extremes here or here. But depending on what your group values, right, you might see that 124 start to turn into like 121, 120. And work more towards the baseline, and then that 25, 26 start to fade stronger to like a -28, -29. And a lot of it has to do with mobility of the defender too, and you see that more at the corners. But one of the things that I like as we bounce over to right-handed hitters is how drastic the footage change here is. And this is standard. This is not unique in Chapman dropping 8 feet. When it comes to double play depth, this is pretty standard. But I do like this concept of being able to maximize the ground coverage. And then like we have made a very, very heavy footage adjustment based on the fact that we're going to prioritize getting this out at second, which is huge. And so as we dive into this video, understanding where our positioning is, understanding that it's also personnel dependent. Like we have these numbers for the elite of the elite, but we also have these clouds, and that's where everyone else is playing, including these guys. So being able to see the adjustments that they're making at the highest level is really important. That way we don't fall into the trap of like, here's this concrete space that we have to put a guy, right? Being able to adjust that is really, really valuable. So again, here's the next one with first base. Now you'll see when we're holding runners, obviously that position is going to be pretty standard. But the cloud coverage at first base when you've got a right-handed hitter is pretty unique. A lot of guys are working more towards the line. I'd say those are guys who are probably a little bit less mobile. That direct line to first is a little bit quicker than floating out here. But you'll see that the positioning grouping is probably going to work in here at an angle. That's pretty standard, that move. It's just how much ground can you cover? Can you get back to the bag in time? Stuff like that. And from second base, we're working up from this angle, covering ground towards the line. But you'll notice a lot of younger teams, a lot of high school teams will want to put a first baseman right on the line here to take away that double, and that's fair. But we really need to understand how much time we have, even on balls that are scalded down the line. Being able to cover that ground is doable when we're not planted on top of that line. And I think that, being able to create space and cover this 4-hole is important. Now our second baseman is going to be shifted, but being able to cover this space aggressively is important as well. So can we maximize the ground coverage, not just cover one spot? Can we maximize what we're covering? And Connor, this is yours. I'll let you take over here.
This, I think, was from Guy Correa from his Friday Fielders account, but I just think it's a good visual for, like, if you're going up the middle as a shortstop or second baseman, flipping it. If you're getting closer, obviously you want to put, like, more air underneath it, like an alley-oop. But if you're farther away, you got to throw it harder, have a firmer flip. So I just think it's a good visual for other guys to kind of see. So then if you're a basketball player, you kind of get a different kind of lens on the idea of, if you're closer, you got to put more air underneath it. But if you're farther, you just got to be a little more firm with it.
I like that. Brandon, I think you mentioned one time we were talking to a kid, and like the idea is like as they're tracking, I think it was a second baseman feeding a shortstop, and he's starting to get closer to the bag, and he wanted to go with a power feed or a tabletop. And like you just kind of said, hover it, like let your third baseman run through the ball or shortstop run through the ball there. And so that's a cue I've stolen for sure. That was probably way back when. But man, that one really clicked with me.
Yeah, I think, and Cody, I don't know if you want to get too deep into mechanics right now, but I think for second baseman, I think allowing them the tools or giving them the tools of underhand flip. I call it pitch when you finish thumb down and you pitch from the center of your body, and then underhand flip, which is where you finish palm up. But I think second baseman having both of those and feeling comfortable with both of those as they get closer, that underhand flip and that softness, like Connor's talking about, is really key. And like you just mentioned, letting the shortstop kind of hover.
That's the way to do it, man. I love it. Connor, is this another one that you pulled up too?
Yeah, I just think it's another good visual, just kind of show what a good feed looks like. Obviously, like the A+ and the A can kind of change based on what your double play partner likes more. Like I know personally, if I'm at second, I like it more on the A because I like to step back ideally. And then like one of the guys that I play with now, he likes A+. He likes to come across and everything. And then I know also like I've turned no plays with Arenado, and he said that anything not on the A, like he doesn't want you to catch because he wants the guys to step back and protect themselves from the slide. So it just kind of changes on who it is, the A and A+, but obviously you want to live in there because your feed determines if really you're going to get that at first or not. And I think you just got to take pride in where your feed is.
So good. I love that visual too. That's a visual you can kind of implement too with first base, and fuel that as a defender too. Now, again, the A+ and the B's and the C's will change there, but I like the idea of having that grade on a throw. That's really important. That way, if you got a baller, he's going to make that B+ look like an A. But having that idea of like we can maximize the speed here, we can speed this up. That's so good.
Cody, I think as the thrower too, can you go back to that really quick? I think as the thrower too, I think it's important to understand how your ball moves. So like when we're talking about as a shortstop moving uphill or throwing uphill, you're going to have that natural movement to the right? So if you're, I always tell the shortstop, if you're aiming for his glove, so say we're aiming for that A+ box right there, trying to aim for kind of like that B, where B meets, what is that, A minus or A right there, where
Yeah.
B meets A. Kind of aim for that if we're going to work uphill, and that ball is going to naturally tail into his glove side.
I dig that. Jordan, this one's yours, yeah?
Yeah. Go back one more time, Cody, too, to that chart. I think it's important.
I got you.
Too, it just reminded me, like, so those B minuses and B pluses, like, make sure, like, that's like for us anyways, like we practice that. If you see a lot of guys actually before you really like start to open their eyes to it, that feed up there, it's gonna get to their glove, they're gonna bring it all the way down to their chest, and it's gonna be a big circular motion, and it's just not gonna be an efficient move. So our guys, like we right now, like at least like every day during BP, I work on feeds with them from third and short, and like they love working on that B plus B minus feed now, and they just straight like just ricochet it right into throwing. They don't bring it down or anything, and I think that's going to be huge when come game day. If they could turn that B or B plus, that's going to be huge for our team, which is it's kind of why we do it, right? So just like that, I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of amateur guys. They'll catch that B plus and bring it down, and then just do like this big circular motion, and that's all time, right? So if they can kind of ricochet that ball, that B plus or B minus, straight into their hands from up there and get rid of it, that's when you start seeing some big jumps from guys, and they get addicted to it. Honestly, like our guys are starting to get better at it, and they want to work on that all the time. That's kind of something I got from my dad. Like he was really good at turning that one up there, and he worked on that with me a lot. And I've kind of passed on to our guys, and they love working on that, even if they fumble it or whatever. Like they're starting to really get better at it from working on it so much. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, love it,
Cody.
man.
Cody, I would say from the flip side too, not to keep harping on this chart here, but I think a lot of teams and a lot of coaches get really set in working in that A plus range right there. I think it's important too, kind of like Jordan was saying. I think it's important to work in that C minus B minus, that next tier down, and like almost like you and I were talking about the other day. I think we were talking about the steering wheel, working that glove down and being able to catch, turn those fingers down and catch low below the belt, and then transition from there too. So I think mixing in those, we always say expect a bad throw, mixing in those lower throws that are going to die on you. Even if you're coming across the bag, those balls that are still going to maybe die on you, and you have to transition, like I said, below the belt, transition low, and try and work uphill to the first baseman.
It's so good, man. It's
and
so
those B's and D's too, like I bring that up a lot as well. Like kids don't really, college guys or whatever, kids, they don't really realize when you're working double plays in the moment. If you just like lower your body with your legs, you really get down into your legs. Sometimes those B's turn into A's.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't realize it until you like point that out. Like, hey, just get just kind of shrink, get a little bit lower, and you're gonna be able to turn that just like an A. So that's kind of just like a little key that I like to throw in there as well.
I think it's important too, last thing on this, but I think it's important too to talk about how each letter and how your body moves with each letter, how that affects your arm angle that you're using. So if you're catching that C minus, that B, you're going to use a lower arm slot. If you're going to catch that D on the left side of us right there, that might be a higher arm slot. So I think, again, mixing in those different boxes so that players are feeling and understanding what comes next. What is the footwork I have to use? What is the arm angle I have to use to get the ball effectively to first base?
I love it. And I think, speaking on that arm angle issue or arm angle problem, you see too, a lot of the times when you're a shortstop feeding that second baseman, that throw comes down, and we want to stay throwing uphill here too. So Jordan, this video is coming from you, right?
Yeah. I love watching this video. I was lucky to be able to watch Bobby Dickerson work with these guys a lot, and this was just like an indie session between Dickerson and Toddy, and you watch it, like he's basically a lot led up to it, but kind of Toddy had a hitch in his feed and kind of was like losing rhythm a little bit. So a good way that Bobby was explaining it was like time up your right foot to that ball, and then it's just like a swing. Like when you're swinging, you're getting rhythm, right? So time up that right foot to the ground ball, and just kind of keep it in motion instead of making it like a 3-step process. And I think once you kind of introduce that timing it up with the right foot, it kind of all flows into that rhythm. And I just thought that was him showing it here was a great visual.
It's so good. It's so good. He's one of the best. And when you watch him preset his feet, a lot of coaches, a ton of young coaches are going to want him like square your players up towards where the ball is coming from. His left foot is angled towards the right fielder. Like he's opened up that angle for his slot already. So that's kind of like a taboo thing to do at younger ages. But to be honest with you, it makes this play easier, right? So if you're going to make this play in an effort to make it easier for your younger guys, creating that open stance and allowing that slot to come through from low to high, that's really, unless you want to take an extra step with that left foot, this is the only way you can get that drop slot without having to like feel like you're pulling across your chest. It's just it's so good.
What
how
I
he
liked
teaches
about
this.
that is he just makes it like when you're looking at it, you're like he makes it look that looks very easy, and that's what stuck out to me about it. Like he makes it. I think that's one of the what makes him so good is how easy his teaching is.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Here's another video we've got of a double play, and this was a video that I really loved. Is this you, Jordan, or is this Connor?
Yeah, I think I threw that in there.
So good. This is the part I love. The transfer is just lightning fast, and you've seen the glove presentation too. And this is probably the best time to talk about this. But staying vertical with your glove. I've got the Eagle 975S here. But when you're showing that glove, showing a vertical glove and being able to pull that transfer off from that space is so important. And that's why we talk about that grid of like, that's the fastest transfer we can get. It allows us to hold flexion in our arm without pulling across. That really messes up our exchange. If we have to turn over, we can still do it. It's just not as quick. And then going below the belt and turning the glove over to be able to receive that ball is so important. So this is a clip that I really love because you can see how fast it happens. He's not reaching towards the ball, but he's not letting it handcuff him either, right? He's staying with flexion there, and it really does like just kind of flow right into his arm action, and the ball doesn't stop moving. So, I mean, is that Gavin Lux there?
Yeah.
Cody, one thing that I really like, and I've kind of said it to our infielders before, is thinking about, I know you talked about vertical glove, but I like to then kind of rotate, and I might be opposite of you guys here, but rotate my hand so that way my left or my glove hand gets to be about, 35, 45 degrees. And like Jordan talked about, that deflection into my throwing hand. So that way that deflection becomes a little bit quicker. And I actually don't love the word deflection because I think you still have to have control of the baseball. I wish there was a better word, but it's probably the best word that we can use, but deflect it into our throwing hand. And then that frees up, just like we see with Lux here, that frees up that throwing arm to then naturally, get into that throwing slot. So I think that's important to think about too. I know a lot of coaches talk about, especially at the youth levels, talk about kind of alligator trap like this. And then here, I just think it's an easier and quicker flow to start to move that glove this way and wash the window this way and transition from there with that angle.
Yeah. When you guys played, were you vertical and did you pass down or did you come across?
I was always like a ricochet.
I'm trying to remember
guy.
what I did.
My dad, that's how my dad always explained it, and with practices, just like literally like he'd even have me like he'd throw the ball and he'd want me to just like literally just ricochet it into my hand, and if I fumble it, whatever, he just wanted me to get the feeling of getting that ball out of there. But it was always vertical, and that's the other thing I like about this clip too is that you don't see his hands going below his center line. It's straight, across. It's not the loop. And you see a lot of younger guys who struggle a little bit. They're that kind of like circular loop, and that just takes so much more time. And it makes that like Zink was saying, it kind of makes it harder to get that ball out of there because you're going down. Nico Horner, I was able to watch him turn double plays a lot the last few years in person. He's really good, just as good as Lux at this. His hands never go below his center line right here. It's just straight vertical and straight. I guess you could call it.
It's so cool too. Like when you see this exchange, watch his height rise here. So he's braced lower, like you talked about, Jordan, like making that like lower level, lower tier ball, a center tier ball. And then as he goes to throw, like there's a rise in posture, assuming probably because he can put more on it from that stance. But like he makes this throw into an A+ throw because he's able to brace his legs. Like he sinks in there. Now he rises here. As he pops up, he kind of pushes out off that. And it's not extreme, but it's quick. Wow.
So and I think you got to have that in your back pocket too. Like that, obviously that was a play that they need. Like it was like, we need this, you got to turn it. We don't have time to do any other type of pivots. And I think he kind of knew that going into it, which also makes it impressive because he knew what had to be done, and he just straight got there and got it out. And I think that's a good thing to incorporate into practice plans as well, for what it's worth.
It's awesome, man. It's awesome. Connor, this is one of yours. I do apologize for the viewers here. I need to get better at paying attention while I'm editing. I got a little exposed on my choice of music for my class. So, Connor, talk to us about this one.
I just like this clip because you can see that he flips it from where he fields it. So he's not like funneling all the way to his center line. He's just literally catching it, and then he's just flipping it from there. And then kind of a good cue that I learned when I was younger was go shake the second baseman's hand. So then you're not flipping it and just stopping your momentum. You're catching it and you're flipping it, and you're taking 2 or 3 hard steps after to go shake his hand, basically. That was just a good cue for me, especially when I was younger, and I think that's just kind of a good idea, just so you're not – there's something on the flip, because he's still decent ways from the bag, so he's got to flip it pretty firm.
Well, it's so cool. Like this play, not a whole lot of guys cue it like this, but it seems like as he's receiving it, directly post-reception, he goes palm down. So he exchanges to essentially the path that he's running. He goes palm down in the opposite direction to clear. A lot of guys will want to scoop and flip this like this when they go to deliver and get the glove out of the way. It just doesn't play the same way. So to get it like this, first of all, you got to pocket the ball. But I think as a visual, as a second baseman, it helps a ton when you see that the pocket isn't facing you. You know the ball has to be in his hand, and you know where it's coming from. Because this is a quick play. And again, like you said, he's flipping this from where he's catching it. So being able to have that really clear line of sight is super important.
I think, too, on this play,
so well.
Another thing that can help guys out is that rhythm of that. If you go back to that Lindor clip, the rhythm of the left foot on that feed. Like if guys can, we work on that a lot. Is if they can get the feeling of that left foot hitting right as the ball's hitting that glove. If they're in that timing and that rhythm, at every time, that feed kind of comes along with it. That feed's gonna be money every single time. So that's one thing we work on too, is that left foot.
Jordan, you guys talk about being directional with that left foot. I notice, like we're watching Lindor here, and it looks like his toes are going right into his glove. I know that's one thing that I've talked about. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It should happen naturally, right? But is that something you guys focus on too?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it should happen naturally, right? Based on the direction of that ball. But like I said, I think mainly like the one thing we try to key on is obviously on that play. You see a lot of times guys will like kind of overrun it, or they'll be behind a little bit. So I think for us, it's more like we want that. Let's try to take that left foot to that hop and go from there. And I think you're right. I think if you do focus on that, if you do kind of take that left foot to the hop, you're gonna be in line. The direction's gonna be there just on its own.
So good.
And if you're not,
That's
just
so good.
to piggyback off that, if you're not and your rhythm's off, you're probably not going to be in line. And I think that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where sometimes guys overrun it, and that obviously means you're not on time with that left foot. So you're going to be a little bit of either early or late or whatever it might be.
Right. So good. Man, that ball just does not stop moving on this play. Boom, boom, boom. Is this Dansby?
Yeah.
He's so mechanically
good.
sound.
I mean, it's also a little hard to tell, but he's open. He's slightly open with his feet, even though his chest is still down. So if that ball did come up, that ball's in him in the chest and be right in front of him. But like for me personally, I've tried to focus on that a lot on any ball to my right that I'm going to throw. If I can beat it there, I'm not going to take a step. And I just feel like it's so much quicker than catching it and then dropping that left foot and throwing. I wish I was taught that earlier, because I think I've turned more to plays because I don't take an extra step. I can just get it out quicker. My legs aren't in my way, and I just throw it and I give them a good feed.
That's so good. Do you think that's going to be aimed more towards right center on this play?
Yeah, probably a little bit, I would think.
I'm curious. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
That's more towards right center. I mean, that is. Go ahead, Brandon.
I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you to lose your train of thinking here, but I'm curious. I want to hear what you guys have to say about the decision making and how you guys talk through decision making for a shortstop to go either flip. I mean, we just saw the Lindor flip to a throw with Swanson here. Anything you guys talk about in regards to decision making flowing into tempo into the ground ball that affects what feed they're using?
I'll start it.
Man, I think a lot of it depends on your stakes. Go ahead, Jordan. I'm on a delay here, I think.
No, you're good. So, Brandon, are you kind of asking like, based on where the ball is, what type of feed we're teaching, or just to clarify?
Yeah. So I bring it up just because I think it's good for the listeners. Like, obviously, as an infielder, I think you want to understand where you're at, where you're at on the field, and what you feel most comfortable with in regards to. And we'll just say, using a flip feed. Can you create momentum still with one step, with two steps, anything beyond that? Is it going to be a throw for you? I know Eric Stamets and I have had this conversation before. Like, he really likes saying, all right, if you can cut the ball off and go and cut it off into sections and go like one step across the lane of the ground ball, you should be able to naturally flip that ball. Anything beyond one step, kind of as a general rule of thumb, that's going to become a throw. So I was just curious how you guys talk about that, or if you guys just kind of let the players feel it out.
I think for us, kind of one thing that I learned from Gary Patchett, really good infield dude out here, is like we kind of work on. We actually were working on it this week. Like plays, I kind of separated into plays like inside or outside of the box. So the box, we'll just call it. I think it's accurate to say about 5 feet to your right and 5 feet to your left. I would say if it's 5 feet to our right, I would still be okay with either getting there and presetting your angle and going and throwing overhand. And then obviously vice versa, about 5 steps to your left, then I think it'd be most efficient to go underhand. Now the one play that I'm sure you guys have seen and it's kind of a lot of guys actually don't practice it, but like a ball outside the box to your right, so I guess it would be a backhand for a shortstop. A lot of guys don't really trust that backhand into a double play. So you'll see guys that try to overspeed it, where they'll try to exert so much energy to get around it or just get it in front of them, and it kind of it's not very efficient. Guys get handcuffed, guys boot it. Where I try to explain to them like, hey, outside the box, if you just trust that backhand, it almost you flow into the play. So that we've been working on that a lot. It's kind of like that ball, that double play ball outside the box to your right backhand. Like, trust your backhand, man. Trust it, and then as soon as you kind of get that feel, you'll flow into a backhand. You'll have so much more on your throw than exerting all this energy, trying as hard as you can to like get around a ball to go to second or just square it up and go to second, when you can make it so much easier on yourself, just kind of turn that play into a backhand. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. That's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah, I think too, Jordan, with that, I think knowing the limitations of your shortstops too, as you're teaching that, like, you're right. Some guys might be able to do that, whereas other guys might be athletic enough to turn that into a two-hand lane, essentially a two-hand lane to then throw uphill or whatever. So, knowing your infielders and what their limitations are and their comfortability with certain feeds.
100%.
So good. So again, I apologize. I'm 100% on a delay here, but it's fun to hear you guys go through that, because that's some really good stuff. For those people watching this is a video I did a while back. Just for those more blue collar guys who maybe this is all you got at home, which is a lot of Midwest folks. Being able to just get a tennis ball and throw it to a net or off a wall, give yourself an aim point, work on throwing uphill, work on keeping the ball moving. Again, then we're working on power feeds or shuffles, tabletops, whatever you want to call it, pitches. And I think a lot of these kind of go by the wayside because we lose the feet. And when we lose the feet, we start the peacock pop up, and we see a lot of airmailed feeds on this. So being able to extend through your target, we want that to be linear. We're still working uphill because most of the time we're fielding low. Like we're getting rid of this at the same point we catch it. But that is something that I think you can do at home too. And Cody, so here's the last thing we'll finish off. Oh, go ahead.
Cody, real quick. I know not everybody has this luxury, but like at the facility, we have 9-hole squares that we can use. So with that, if you're at home, like we talked about a few slides ago, if you can find a way to separate that or segment that, so players know, just to add a kind of another little flair to it, so players know how their ball's moving as they throw, they can aim for certain, pockets or windows. But yeah, we had the luxury at the facility to use the 9-hole that we've busted out sometimes to give the players an understanding of, which square to aim for, how the ball is moving. Does it move from one square to the next as they throw it?
So good. That's so good. So diving into this next part, this is our RGDP leaderboard. This is essentially double play efficiency for defenders. What do you guys see on this list? And I've added their DRS and fielding run value as well. What do you guys see on this? Is there anything that kind of jumps out at you? Does this seem to make sense with the guys we're working with here?
Seems like it matches up if Mason wins at the top.
That's right. It's so good. I think the only things that kind of jump out to me are Olson and Naylor. Naylor's kind of known as as a guy who's decently quick for a first baseman because he's able to get a good first step. But to be honest with you, I call it like attention to detail stats are not great, which I feel like this is one of them. He's higher level on this for sure. But like you go look at his receiving stats at first base, they're really poor. Now, I say that he made one of the most incredible receptions I've ever seen in the postseason on a play that Jimenez made. But a lot of these, like, is he okay with just getting one out type stats? Like, this is what shows that he's not. Like, he's going to go make the double play, and he's going to be that guy to make the big play. So to me, that's one that is like a little bit, surprising for me for sure.
Tovar is up there too. I mean, that's pretty standard. That dude's like he's another one that's really, really, really mechanically sound. If you watch him, he's really good.
Well, it's interesting. FRV is supposed to be a more apt comparison to defensive runs saved, and you still see the same kind of contrast that you would see with DRS and OAA. You look at Neto here. I mean, he's nasty. He's one of the best defenders in the league, and he's got a plus 10 DRS or a plus 11 DRS and a -3 FRV. And I'd love to know essentially what their matrices are. I know DRS has a 24-point matrix, and I'd love to know the weighting there, and again how they're doing it with FRV, because to be honest with you, these are supposed to give us evaluations of very, very similar things, and to have these big of contrasts, to me, I understand why. It's because different groups evaluate things different ways, but the contrast, I don't think, in my opinion, should be that heavy. That's something that I kind of, scratch my head about, because it is just something like we expect these groups to be really good at what they do, and then we have super big contrast, and again, just a better understanding there from both sides would be really, really good. You see the same thing with Naylor with -6 DRS and +1 FRV. So very, very interesting stuff. But guys, I've got nothing else. Is there anything you guys want to add here?
I think that's some pretty solid stuff. Overall, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Cody.
Anytime, man. It's a blast. Love talking shop. Connor, Brandon, thanks to you guys for being on too. I know you guys take times out of your day. We're all really, really busy, so I appreciate you coming on here and helping me get better and sharing some information with people who want to learn more about double plays.
Yeah, you got it, Cody. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. If you want to check out the other videos, you'll see them on the screen now. We have a variety of topics, and we'll let you know via social media outlets if you're interested, and we'll have more stuff popping out there soon. So thanks for watching. We'll see you later.